drink of water. Okay. So, Mr. Secretary General, I know some things are going well for you. And I would just point out, I've covered NATO almost 20 years, so we're kind of the same in that we kind of just hang around and keep our jobs and hope for the best. But you know I have to ask this. You mentioned don't go it alone, don't create fractures where none are needed. We cannot avoid the question, the problem that has been created with President Trump's claims on Greenland. The Greenlandic government yesterday stated again they want their security to be determined by NATO, to be inside NATO. So this is going to be on your plate, even if you wish it weren't. And you said yesterday that it is not a crisis. So I would like to know what word you would use to describe what's happening now and how you can possibly explain that security inside the alliance is enhanced in any way by the US claims that they need to own Greenland, not just maybe boost their presence, but actually own the island. Can you just unpack that for us? It's really what's on everybody's minds here.
Well, let me start by saying that it was Donald Trump, the American president, who already, when he was Trump 45, so his previous presidency between 2016 and 2020, was making us aware collectively of the need to protect the high north in the Arctic. As you know, we have 8 high north countries in the Arctic. 1 is Russia, outside NATO, and 7 are inside NATO. That's Canada and the US. And then in Europe, it is Denmark through Greenland, and Iceland, Finland, Norway, and Sweden. These 7 countries are basically bordering on the Arctic. And it was President Trump in his first term, as I said, who basically alerted us to the fact that sea lanes are opening up, that Russia and China are more active, and that we have to do more there together. We had a very good discussion in NATO. It was around summer. We are now taking next steps to build on that, because we all agree in NATO, we all agree that when it comes to the protection of the Arctic, we have to work together. And that's exactly what we are doing. Then, of course, I'm never commenting when there are discussions between allies. That's not up for me to comment on, but I can assure you that there is complete agreement that when it comes to the assessment of the urgency of the security situation, not only in the Baltic Sea, not only on the eastern flank, but also in the Arctic and in the southern neighborhood, obviously also. But now, concentrating on the Arctic, we all work together.
Okay, but I really asked about Greenland specifically. Is there any single ally who would support the US forcibly taking Greenland?
Again, what we are discussing here is to make sure that the Arctic is safe, that we have 7 countries working together, including the United States. So we came together in NATO, in the North Atlantic Council. As you know, we work together as the ambassadors, and sometimes it is in the formation of foreign ministers or defense ministers, or the leaders when it is a summit. We call that the North Atlantic Council, a bit like you have the European Council in Europe. And the North Atlantic Council came together at the level of the ambassadors and decided that we have to step up collectively. We all agree on this. And when it comes now to the next steps, we also all agree that we have to take those next steps, and we are working on that diligently at the moment.
And Denmark did this. I mean, over the last year, it spent $14 billion additional dollars, including on defense for Greenland specifically. It has enhanced its missile defense. It's got new Arctic vessels. It's really spent a lot of money and put a lot of time, perhaps acknowledging that it should have been done earlier. You know, this is something that allies can agree on. But I still have to come back to the point. How would Arctic security be enhanced if the US invaded Greenland?
But again, and therefore my role is to make sure that the alliance as a whole is doing what is necessary to keep the whole of the alliance safe. And you're totally right on Denmark. Denmark is investing in Boeing P-8s. Denmark is investing in long-range drones.
Surveillance planes for those non-NATO people?
Yeah, they are also investing in more F-35s. And they're investing in air-to-air refueling. And all these capabilities you need, not only to keep Denmark safe, to keep NATO as a whole safe, but also to make sure that when it comes to the Arctic region, and for them, of course, a special priority when it comes to Greenland, to stay as safe as possible. But again, I never comment when there are discussions between allies.
I'm doing my best.
So we agree. But I can tell you that when we talk about the security of the Arctic region, there is no disagreement within the alliance when it comes to that issue. And that is not only pertaining to the 7 who border on the Arctic, that's also true for other allies who are very much involved here. You have seen comments from the Brits and from the Germans who all want to help here to make sure that the Arctic region, that is US, Canada and Europe, stay safe.
Well, I was just going to follow up, if you wanted to make any announcement that there's going to be something like an Arctic Sentry mission, it would be a good place to do it. You know, you had Baltic Sentry, Eastern Sentry when the need was acute. I mean, do you expect Arctic Sentry or Greenland Sentry to be stood up?
What I expect over the coming weeks is discussions how we will take the next step, and the next step has to be about, given the fact that we come to the same analysis, all NATO allies, and had a very good discussion on this around summer. We had a first debate again, it was now, I think, last week in the North Atlantic Council on what the next step should be. And we are now working on that with all allies involved, particularly, of course, the 7 who are bordering on the Arctic.
I'm not allowed to take all the questions for myself because I would, but I do have to open to discussion, and hopefully some of them will follow up on some of this. And when I call on you, please stand up, and because I don't know where everyone is sitting that is going to get a question. First, MEP is Dan Barna. There you go, Dan.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we have the Secretary General until 4 o'clock. He's given us some extra time, so let's do our best.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. Nice to see you here. Following the January 6th summit you have mentioned in your speech, how does NATO assess the genuine credibility of security guarantees that rely primarily on European force projections without direct troop commitment of the United States? Specifically, does shifting the burden of enforcement to a coalition within the alliance risk creating a 2-tier NATO that emboldens Russia to test these new boundaries? This is the first question. The second one is something on everyone's lips. We hear about NATO's future and role in academia, in media, and of course in politics. I grew up in Romania where NATO was just a dream and then became a reality. And now I see doubts and fears cast shadow on this reality. So allow me to be very blunt. Are you the last Secretary General of NATO?
So you thought I would be provocative. So
I was not planning to quit already, but I'm sure there will be a successor someday. I have no idea, by the way, how long I will be in this job because nobody told me. But
and you never know, as we saw with Stoltenberg.
Yeah, you
right?
never know, and there needs to be unanimity on the successor. But I never got a contract or whatever, so I have no idea for how long I've been appointed. But I'm thoroughly enjoying the role and the job, and I feel it's really important. And there is a lot of support. Not for me personally, that's not important, but for the collective endeavor as NATO. And I'm so happy so you're from Romania and what you just mentioned, and I think it is totally true that NATO is crucial. Can we only, I mean, I was born in 1967 and I was raised with the idea that Nicolae Ceausescu would forever rule Romania. And now Romania is in the EU, Romania is in NATO. These are some of the big events of history. Let's never forget what we collectively went through and how important that is. Now NATO is strong, and I think because of the decisions in The Hague during the NATO summit, it is even stronger. Because finally now, we have decided to spend what is needed to protect ourselves based on an assessment of all the defense needs we collectively have. And by doing that, we are also equalizing our spending with the United States, which was since Eisenhower debate, the fact that the US was spending so much more than the Europeans and the Canadians, and now we are equalizing. I think that's great news. On your first question, it is a little bit different. When you look at the meeting in Paris last week, what came out of that meeting is a 3-level approach when it comes to security guarantees for Ukraine. Level 1 is the Ukrainian armed forces. They will be, of course, the first line of defense, as in every country, defending themselves. The second element of security guarantees will be what is called the coalition of the willing, being brought together by Keir Starmer and President Macron of France, Emmanuel Macron, many countries working together, providing security guarantees for Ukraine, including training the Ukrainian armed forces and whatever is necessary to make sure that Ukraine can defend itself. But there is a third element, and the third element is the United States. The United States is now completely involved, and that involvement of the United States in securing the security guarantees is really extremely important. So that means that you now have a package in place, which is almost done. We have to nail the final details. But that will provide a situation where if Russia would ever think of attacking again post a long-term ceasefire or a peace deal, they will only think of this a couple of minutes and then let go, because they know the situation has changed dramatically since Minsk, and the reaction will be devastating. They will not do it.
Okay. All right, take a drink of water, because I'm calling on a Danish MEP.
Oh, is that?
Stine Boss.
Okay. Thank you very much, and thank you for being here with us today. And allow me to address you as the guy who's looking after all of us. And I just want you to notice, and I'm sure you have noticed it because it's been all over the place, that the people of Greenland, it's 56,000 people, are scared stiff. They're stressed, and they're more than just worried. You have put now also out there all the truths about Denmark has invested. We are all parts of NATO. We are all talking together. And yet, we have already an agreement. It's from 1951, you know that as well, between Denmark, the Kingdom of Denmark, and the US, allowing the US to deploy all the military forces they want. They had more than 1,000. Now they have 200. There are not one single Chinese or Russian ship around Greenland. Let that be stated as a fact. And there are, of course, also now conversations going on to try and make this go in a direction where we as allies, and I and my country and all the people in Greenland strongly believe that we are allies and that you are there to protect us. But please give us an indication of what can this alliance do if two countries within the alliance cannot agree. Thank you.
Yes, but Thank you so much for that very well put question. But you have to respect the fact that when there are discussions between allies, my role has to be to make sure we solve issues. And when it comes to the protection of the High North, that is my role. I can never comment on that. That's impossible in public. And what I'm doing, and with the US and Canada and all our allies in Europe, is to make sure that we not only concentrate about Greenland. This is an issue about the High North. This is an issue about the Arctic territory. Let's not be naive. Even if there are not that many ships sailing at the moment, we know that with the sea lanes opening up in the High North and the Arctic, and this is not only true for Greenland, this is true for the whole Arctic area. It's not only Russia active there, it is increasingly also China being active there. So when it comes to the Arctic region, we have to work together as an alliance, and that's exactly what we are doing, and we are now putting more details to the next step to make sure that we indeed can do that as a collective alliance. You can be sure of that.
But is it, sir, is it unthinkable, as unimaginable, the words we used to use, that one ally could take up arms against another inside NATO?
Again, my role as Secretary General, I'm very clear. I never ever comment when there are discussions within the alliance. We have discussions between Greece and Turkey. We have had discussions between other allies. What you then will see all my predecessors do, and myself, is never comment on that in public. You work behind the scenes, and when it comes to the issue at stake here, and I believe there is a bigger issue at stake here, and that is the defense of the High North, the defense of the Arctic area, there you can be sure that we do everything to protect the whole of the alliance. That's my role, to keep 1 billion people safe. And that is not only the eastern flank and the US and the southern flank, that is also the Arctic area.
You might want to take another drink, because I'm calling on Andrew. Andrew Gray from Reuters, please. Stand up. He's way in the back. He's back there. You know him. There he is.
Thank you, Andrew Gray from Reuters, Secretary General. I will keep this one short. I'm not asking you to comment on specific discussions, as you've already made clear that you won't do that. But in general, is it acceptable for one NATO ally to threaten the use of force to take the territory of another?
Well, I think it's the same question in another so I refer to the previous answer.
Oh, that was it? Okay. All right, this is going well. Okay, next on my list is Malik Azmani.
Yes, well, dear Mark, it's quite strange, of course, to put also questions because we have, of course, also some.
You're party colleagues, so.
Yeah, party colleagues.
I planted this question. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
Well, fair enough. Then I planted Andrew.
When you hear the question, Mark, it could be that people are thinking it because I want to touch on another subject, and that is the situation in Iran. I would like to ask you about this shocking situation, of course, what we see with peaceful protesters are facing violent crackdowns, people are dying, and the only thing what they want is freedom. And I was wondering, how do you assess the current situation in Iran? What is your take also on the ongoing protest? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that question. And of course, as NATO, we concentrate on the North Atlantic area. But let me try to answer the questions despite the fact that it's outside NATO territory. Because I think, and I hope we all agree, that what is happening in Iran is repellent. What the leadership is doing against its own population. People protesting peacefully to make their views clear. And let's not forget, democracy is not only parliaments. Yes, parliaments are very important, I can tell you. But it is not only parliaments. Democracy is parliaments, plus free media, plus the right to protest and to make your views known. This oppressive regime in Tehran is now applying massive force and massive violence against its own population. There are many reports of many people dying. I find it repellent. I can assure you that NATO allies are day in, day out navigating this crisis, in constant touch on this. But I think we can all agree that we wish the best for Iran, and particularly not for the leadership, but for the Iranian people.
Okay, I'm going to go back to the journalist row. Mina from Liga in Ukraine. I can't, it's very hard to see out there, sorry. Stand up, please, Mina.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Milana Golovany from Ukrainian media outlet Liga.net. Secretary General, after the Orishnik ballistic missile hit on Lviv, the fire was visible near the Russian border. If Russia attack with the same missile NATO territory tomorrow, will NATO respond?
Yes, but we also respond now, because this is already terrible. The Russian missiles are weapons of death and mass and destruction. And we have seen this now when they were used on Lviv the other day. And I find this terrible. We have seen last night, again, hundreds of drones and tens of missiles hitting Ukraine. And particularly now hitting the civilian infrastructure, innocent civilians. This has nothing to do with the combat on the front line. This is just creating panic and death among the general Ukrainian population. And it is evidence of the atrocities the Russians are willing to go to. So that is why I'm so inspired to try to do everything to make sure you guys have the interceptors necessary to take out the missiles wherever you can. And please, also here to the parliamentarians, work with your governments to dig deep in your stockpiles and to find the necessary interceptors for Patriot systems, for NASAM systems, for SAM-T systems, because they are urgently needed by the Ukrainians. This is why I agreed with President Trump on this Pearl initiative in July, because yes, Europe has a lot, but after 3-4 years of war, a lot of the stockpiles in Europe have been depleted, so we have to rely more on what is still in the stockpiles in the United States, and there's still, luckily, a lot left there, and that's crucial for Ukraine, paid for by European and Canadian allies. That's this Pearl initiative. This is why we are doing that, because your fight is our fight. You have to survive this war. We have to make sure that we can end this war as soon as possible and get to a full peace deal, or if necessary, a long-term ceasefire, and to stop the fighting and the killing. By the way, let's not forget that the Russians at the moment are losing massive amounts of their soldiers thanks to the Ukrainian defense, the staunch Ukrainian defense. In months, this is 20 to 25,000 Russians dead. I'm not talking seriously wounded, killed, dead. 20 to 25,000 a month. When you compare that to the Afghan war in the 1980s, they lost 20,000 in 10 years. Now they lose these amounts and more in 1 month. So that's also unsustainable on their side. But you can be assured that that is why I'm so much motivated to work with President Zelensky and European and Canadian and US allies to make sure you've got what you need to keep yourself strong in the fight, but also strong in the negotiating table.
Mr. Secretary General, does Ukraine need to win the war, not just survive it?
I mean, when you look at the moment, I think we have to bring Ukraine to a place where the president knows that security guarantees are in place, that the Russians will never attack again. But that then will lead to a very sensitive discussion about territory. And the sensitive discussion about territory is something only the Ukrainian people can decide. That's not for me to decide. But for the Ukrainian president and the